one artist to support, who would it be?
Right now, honestly, it would be Periphery. Monuments, my band Monuments has a good and long-standing relationship with Periphery, and they haven't. I say they because this was before I joined. They haven't toured with them in ages, but there's always been a really cool camaraderie and also similar sound, I think. And I just think that would be an awesome tour. Monuments and Periphery. Hopefully, maybe next year it could happen.
Yeah, that would be. There's not exactly
I love those guys. I've been listening to them for ages, and we had Spencer on the last album do a track with us, and we hung out with Misha, their guitar player, over in California on the last tour. So I would really love to see that happen.
I think, yeah, it's not a lot. I was going to say there's not exactly a clash of interests there. You're not going to get many fans being like, oh, well.
Yeah, okay, sure. So I guess if I'm shooting higher, I would say like Architects or Spirit Box.
Yeah. No, I would definitely, I'd pay to see you guys, with any of them, to be fair.
But yeah, for me, it's Periphery because I just fucking love Periphery.
Yeah. There's something about, I've said this a few times on podcasts where, like, there are so many bands, and actually, I hear this with your band as well, with Monuments, where, because the way things are nowadays, it's so often that I actually hear bands that sound like, Periphery, or, a bit like Periphery, or a bit like Monuments. Particularly I'm a guitar player, so I hear the guitar side a lot more, Sure. And it's funny how quickly a band can influence, like, the audience into then sort of being inspired by that, being inspired by them in such a short space of time. I think it's quite funny how, like, you hear Spirit Box sounding guitarists, and they've only been big for like a year.
Yeah, it's like they're pioneering a new little style, and then there's lots of people that want to emulate that style. Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself, when you're kind of in a more writing headspace, do you ever find yourself, how do you kind of set yourself aside? Are you conscious of, like, how am I going to sound like me kind of thing? Or is it a much more
Not really.
Kind of process?
Luckily, I think I have developed my own sound for a long time, and I'm to the point where I know whatever I do is going to sound like me because I do everything in my own way. I don't feel like I'm trying to emulate or replicate or copy another artist, but I certainly do have, like, loads of influences, but they're just tiny pieces that channel into my own Andy filter. And it's usually just I follow my instincts and what jumps out in my brain when I listen to a new instrumental, whether it be for Monuments or Makari or otherwise. I don't know. That's not something that I really need to worry about, I guess.
Yeah. Well, luckily. Because I've seen your stuff pop up, like, over the years, whether it just be like YouTube videos or actual, like, produced music and everything. And
mm-hmm.
One thing I was really intrigued to ask is, what's it like, I guess, being a younger guy? Because how old were you when you started putting sort of YouTube stuff out?
Well, technically, I started on YouTube when I was 17.
Yeah.
But I think that I didn't really take it seriously until, I don't know, maybe 21, 22.
So for perspective, how old are you now?
I am 30 tomorrow.
Oh, man. Well, happy... Yeah. Well, in UK time, it's your birthday in like an hour and a bit.
All right.
So, oh, you're not far from me. I have my birthday I'm a Halloween baby.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
30 as well?
No, I just look older. I'm 25.
Damn it. I'm jealous of you, man.
No, I went from, like, I was babyface all the way till I got the beard.
Yeah.
And then I went from being ID'd at every single bar and shop ever, to then, like, suddenly they're like, oh, you must be, are you here to collect your pension? Like, no.
That's cool, man, because you have the choice to either look ruggedly older, or you can shave it off and still. I cannot do that. I can't grow a sick beard. It's just like a crustache and really bad. It just looks like it's awful.
I've never heard crustache, but that's.
I have to shave it off. Yeah, it's not good.
It must suck to have like. Sorry, I'm just rubbing it in now. It must suck like having just enough to grow, but like not to. No, but the thing is, right,
Dude, it does. Because, like, people will be like, I want to see it grown out. Like, why don't you just leave it for, like, 5 days? And I'm like, I'm no way. It looks really bad. I look like a 12-year-old. Like,
it's like you have seen it grown out.
It's just this German, these German genes or Czech, or I don't know what it is that makes me have crappy facial hair. But, yeah, thank my bloodline.
Well, the thing for me is when I go into a shop with my girlfriend and she gets ID'd and I don't, I'm like, cheers. What does that make me look?
Yeah, it makes me look creepy. No.
I literally look at the shop, like, I've literally just given them my ID and just been like, please just look at mine. It looks weird if you don't. Like,
yeah. Oh, shit. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. So it's
dude.
It's a blessing.
That's
in
hilarious.
Where's your name from?
So, Cizek, it's Czechoslovakian, but technically it's pre-Czech Republic. This is just what my dad tells me. He says that it's Bohemian. So that's before Czechia.
Before Mercury.
So it's a Bohemian, yeah. It's a Bohemian name. I'm just some white guy, though. It's not like I have a shitload of culture under my belt or anything.
My cultural heritage goes as far as being a 16th Italian, I believe.
Oh, colorful.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
No, I feel you, man. I know how it goes.
Yeah, I've not got any interesting kind of. I've been to, supposedly, my family is from Lucca in Italy, and I have been there once. Have you been?
I have not. I've only been to Milan, but Lucca, I hear, is beautiful.
Yeah, I have to say, I was in Venice recently, and the American tourists. There's something about like. Whenever you kind of picture like the sort of obnoxious tourist was, no offense to the Americans in Venice, but like maybe it's just because there are lots of tourists whose language I don't know. Maybe they were just as obnoxious. But there was one family where we went into a church, and the first question they asked was, "Do you have Wi-Fi?" And
yeah,
like
I mean that fully checks out. That is such an American question. Do you have Wi-Fi? Especially 'cause, well, I guess. You know, they're probably over there with really shitty data because their plans don't extend over to... Because I've experienced this on tour. When you go overseas, your data gets fucked. So they're like, I need to connect. Must have internet. They're going to, like, die out. So I get that.
Yeah. What's it like? Because I know you've got quite a lot of sort of, like, endeavours that you're sort of pursuing. Endeavour sounds very, like...
I like that word.
Brave, doesn't it? It's a good word, yeah. I was about to say, I like saying good words. I do.
Endeavours.
But it sounds quite courageous, doesn't it? But how do you kind of think about, like, what you're going to put your time into? Because obviously, you know, it's like a finite resource, isn't it? And, you know, I do this podcast, I write music, I teach guitar, and then I have other, like, leisure things I do. And I'm really not sure where to put my balance. You know, I'm kind of debating how to figure out like things like having days off. I find it so hard to take a full day off of anything career. Because
you feel guilty. You feel like there's always work to be done. So why not keep working? I get it. Hey man, I'm right there with you. Like what you just explained, that's how I feel. It's really tough. I definitely don't have it down to an exact science. A lot of it is like first come, first serve, or when is this deadline and how close is it, and then I'll try to tackle that first. Sometimes I have to work on stuff in tandem, though. Like right now, I've got to finish writing and pre-proing vocals for a Makari album that I'm finishing up in January. I got to go over to record, so there's a hard deadline for that. And at the same time, I'm doing this album with Nick Nocturnal for Termina, and he basically is like, let's get this done as soon as possible. So, okay, that means something. I can put my time into the Makari stuff because I know when the hard deadline is, and then when I'm not working on that stuff, because I can't be working on the same thing for like I don't know, an entire week. Like, it'll drive me nuts. So I like being able to hop over to a different project, sort of a different hustle, and it's just kind of back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I think another thing that sort of, I suppose, by nature of being a vocalist in the sort of metal world, like guitarists, like there are countless guitarists out there, and drummers and bassists there are still quite a lot. Like a lot, probably. I imagine it goes guitars, drums, and then bass is possibly the least common of the three. And then vocals, I would say there's probably quite a dip in terms of how many vocalists you have in the metal world.
Sure.
So like, because I know it's funny, it's almost the opposite in like my local scene here in Birmingham in the UK, where you wouldn't even remember. I think I literally said hello to you, and I think that was about it.
In Birmingham, really?
In Birmingham, yeah. But yeah, it's funny because like it's actually there's a shortage of drummers here, so like every indie band has like the same drummer in the band. It's quite
Oh
fun.
yeah, were you? Did you say that to me before?
Oh, maybe. I don't. Oh,
Yeah.
I could have done. That'd be weird, deja
It's
vu.
possible. But I totally feel you on that because my local scene, when I was like growing up, especially, was the same way. There were not enough metal drummers, so every drummer was in like 3 different bands, and they were doing double sets all the time. So I get that. I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people want to be the vocalist, but not as many people have the technical skill, I guess.
I think for me, I think such a massive part of it, because I'm kind of trying to like step into it a bit, and that's probably a big part of why I've not kind of got it yet. Is because I think you do have to like step into these things really, but I think a lot of it comes from being okay with like putting yourself out there, like your personality and your kind of it's very
Character, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's in your expressions and it's in your. It's not just your voice; it's in your behaviour a lot. It's a very you're not behind an instrument. You're just there. You got the mic stand, I guess. It's not really very.
Yeah, it's about the whole package. Your charisma and your interaction, your character, your tone, your expression, and then everything else, the lyrics and the notes. I definitely think that just being able to like hit notes, it's not enough. To be a sought after or dynamic frontman, you've got to have all those elements.
Yeah, I think like there's definitely, and I wonder if we're going to get just like even less vocalists, as with the way things are, with the way people are so afraid of just like them just being themselves, with the sort of so fast to get judgment online, if you put stuff out.
Yeah,
I wonder if
it's
we're going to see
scary.
less.
It's vulnerable for sure. So I get that.
Are you kind of a maybe not necessarily extroverted, but like, do you feel like you kind of get your energy off of? I think this is literally the definition of extroversion, but getting the energy out of putting yourself out there in that way.
I'm actually naturally very introverted, believe it or not. But what you said is true. Like, music has always felt like a way that I can properly reach people and express people in a way that I really could never do with just conversation and words. And I was always infamously bad at first impressions growing up and very shy. And I don't think I found my voice literally and figuratively until I started exploring music and singing. Because it's like a different language. For neurodivergent people who have trouble expressing themselves and connecting with people, doing it through music and lyrics, it's a new way. I always say it's like a way for me to bitch about my problems without seeming insufferable, but it also creates a solidarity between you and people who may relate to what you're saying, and that fuels me. That sort of like fills up my social battery when otherwise it would be very low or empty. So yeah, I get a lot from the audience. I can feel their energy feeding back into me, and that allows me to express myself when otherwise I couldn't.
Yeah. What's it kind of if you get someone come up to you and sort of say, because I know it's a common thing, but like quite often people will go up to artists and say about like, oh, you've helped me in this way or this way, you know, whether it just be through the music as a whole or whether it be lyrically or whatever. You know, do you kind of do you get that on a frequent basis at shows and stuff? And if so, or when it does happen, what's it like kind of having that experience of actually like them being quite open with you, and you find out a lot more about them, I guess, in such a short space of time that you would normally maybe take years to understand.
It's definitely like brings a level of vulnerability right to the forefront. I love when that happens. It makes my heart happy because I feel like being a vocalist or a musician or a performer, whatever, entertainer, however you want to call it, it's kind of inherently selfish and vain and a little narcissistic, or at least it can be. And when someone lets me know that what I'm doing is having a positive impact on their life, I feel like what I'm doing it's not purely just selfish and ego. It's like, oh, good, this is actually having a positive impact on other human beings' lives. So it's not just me. If something I'm doing is helping someone in some way, that it makes me feel validated and less guilty, I guess, with what I'm doing, because I do feel kind of guilty expecting attention and to be paid and whatever, this pedestal that I'm on as a musician. It is kind of inherently just like I deserve to be looked at and to be paid attention to, and I'm just like, why? Like, what gives me the right? You know. But then when people tell me it really meant a lot to them and it helped them get through personal struggles like that, I'm like, oh, okay, at least I'm doing that, and that's a little less selfish.
Yeah. Does that?
So yeah, it means a lot to me.
It kind of it is. You're right. It is almost like the trope, isn't it? The sort of the narcissistic front man, if you like. It's the kind of the when you think about like the classic rock and metal bands, you know, you're like, I'd say I wasn't going to name them, but like, to be fair, they're so huge that I'm sure they've had enough of it. But anyway, you know, you can probably people spring to mind mainly the problematic ones, but a lot of that, obviously, quite often you got to think like it stems back to wanting that kind of validation and that, like,
exactly. At the end of the day, we want attention. You know, we want eyes to be on us, and you can say whatever you want, being like, I write only for me. I do this just for me and my soul. It's like, well, then why are you putting it out there for other people? You know, I think that there is a level of, we all want attention inside, and you have to accept that. So knowing that it impacts other people in a good way makes that more okay, at least in my mind.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like it's balance, isn't it? I guess it's like it sort of balances out the
totally. It's just good. It eases my guilt, I guess.
Do you feel kind of like you know, that kind of sort of seeking validation? I think it's not just a frontman thing. Like, it's
an entertainer thing. It's a performer thing, and anyone who wants to be a performer and an entertainer has some level of seeking validation.
Yeah,
inside. And that's okay to acknowledge. It's not even a bad thing. Everybody needs it in some way. But you know, I guess having something that's inherently selfish, giving it a spin where you can help other people at least a little bit. I'm not saying I'm doing the Lord's work or anything like that. I'm just writing my sad songs. But yeah, when people tell me that it's been good for them, I'm like, all right, that's awesome. Thank God.
Do you think, I mean, without me being all like psychoanalyst on it, do you think, because obviously you said about being naturally very introverted, Do you think that ironically might have actually been possibly something that drew you into
Yes.
singing?
And I love the psychoanalysis, by the way, so feel free to psychoanalyze away. I'm really big into psychology, and totally, man. Like, because I could never express myself properly growing up, because I felt invisible, at best invisible, you know what I mean? It drew me to the, I don't know what to call it, the lyricism, the poetry, the self-expression of singing. I felt like it was a hack. It was a way to... I knew inside that I had something to offer, but I wasn't able to get it out there. So, yeah, doing the music was like, okay, here's a way for people to recognize my value. You know, for me to demonstrate value.
Is that an Always Sunny reference?
Yeah, right. You got it. It was a way for me to demonstrate value. Definitely, man. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Does that mean, because, and I think again this isn't. I think there's some of the questions that I'm sort of maybe asking or lining up in my head as this kind of thing. I know they all apply to just musicians generally, but there's obviously that. I feel like the front man is its own thing, or front woman, you know. But I feel like it's its
front
own
person.
Yeah, it's its own kind of deal, and I think. And what was I going to say? When it comes to obviously putting so much of yourself out there on the front line of it, that I feel like that has to be harder to then take criticism because the more of you put out there, do you find it difficult if you see particularly
because then you feel like your soul, your very being is insulted. I guess so. Yeah, you have to be vulnerable, right? That's the only way to do it. When you're vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there, and then you're open to being attacked, and it comes with the territory. You just have to. I think a good way to cope with it is to accept that not everybody likes chocolate chip ice cream or mint. Everyone has a different flavor. So just because someone doesn't like what you're doing, what you're putting out there, doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's not for them. And that's okay. I can recognize that lots of art is objectively sick, but I don't enjoy it for whatever reason, for my own preferences. So as long as you remind yourself that you can't please everybody, it's okay. That's a way to cope with it, to deal with it. Because otherwise, you just get wrapped up. You want to be liked by everybody, and you're just going to be feeling self-conscious all the time and dejected, and that's no good. So it's a double-edged sword. With all this self-expression and a platform and the attention that you get, you're also going to get some negative attention. And, it can range anywhere from, oh, I just don't like this isn't for me, to this person sucks and I hate what they're doing and I hate them. And then you have to look at it and be like, I think there's more going on with that person than just, it's not for me, I think. Maybe they have internal reasons.
Yeah, I was going to say, the irony is that they're kind of it probably doesn't stem back to anywhere good or anywhere healthy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of need to, yeah.
I think the way that you criticize says a lot about you as a critic.
Yeah, I've found myself, particularly, I've definitely been guilty of it, where you see another band or artist or someone doing well, and especially if you feel like you've got the edge on them, it can be so tricky. I just saw, and actually, congratulations, I just saw the download announcement go up.
Oh, yes, thanks.
Which is fucking awesome. So I will definitely...
Yeah, really lucky to have that opportunity.
Yeah. But on a more downer note, I saw a band go on there that I've seen before, and I like them. I think they're really cool. It's not quite my style, but I appreciate what they do. And they they're like a small band. They're probably one of the smaller ones, or they're a very new band, so calling them a small band's not an insult. But and I remember I saw them, and there was that bit of envy where I was like, because I was in a small band not so long ago, and I'm just
it's like, how? Like, of course, man, we all get that way sometimes, where you're like, I feel like I deserve this more. Why are they getting handed this opportunity when I've been grinding, when I've been working so hard, I've been taking these shit tours and these shit shows, blah, 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 and they just get good management and get right on down. Like, sure, I totally get that, man. I think we all feel that way sometimes, but what I try to remind myself is that music is not a meritocracy, so it's more than just how much time have you put in and what are your merits as a musician. There's many, many other factors that you can't blame yourself for. A lot of it is right place, right time, connections. But beyond that, there's just something intangible, like an it factor. You know what I mean? That a lot of artists have that maybe they didn't necessarily work hard for, but it's inherent and it's in them. And that is a reason to deserve an opportunity. Even if you haven't been around long enough, sometimes something just comes out of the blue that is considered very special and valuable. And it doesn't matter if they've been a band for 6 months or 10 years. You know what I mean? Everyone has their own journey and moves at their own pace. And you just gotta let it fuel you to work harder and look inward and think, is what I'm doing working, or do I need to look at this from a different angle? But we're only human, and it's natural to feel that way. I've definitely seen lots of bands that started later than me, or artists that have exceeded me in success, and definitely times where it's easy to compare myself and beat myself up over it, but you just have to remember that everyone's growth is different. It's on a different path, and you just got to keep doing your own thing and working hard and believing in yourself, and not let all the comparisons get to you.
Yeah, I think there's that classic, like, you should compare yourself to who you were yesterday or whatever. But even then, sometimes it's like, geez, I haven't done much since then. Like, I think it's even that is it's how about just don't, like, I mean, you've got to monitor what you're doing, but like you don't have to compare, do you? Like, I mean, maybe you should. I don't know. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying.
Well, I get that too, man. I mean, trying to supersede, I think that's the word, to surpass things that you've done in the past and go beyond, that's tough. To outdo yourself, I struggle with that all the time, comparing myself to like a younger version of me and like, do I still have it? But there are moments where you prove to yourself that you do. And trust me, everything I'm saying right now is like, I know that it's the right way to look at things, but I'm not always looking at things like that. I struggle with these ideas all the time, and I talk to my friends about it and my loved ones, and when I'm having a bad day, I'm like, oh, well, I feel like I'm not good enough for this reason, and this artist is crushing it, and why am I not there? I still get those feelings. So it's normal, it's natural, and you just have to try to work through them in a healthy way, and above all else, don't let it stop you from continuing on, because that's all that really matters. You just got to keep going, got to keep trying.
The Rocky comes to mind.
Oh yeah, dude, great example.
Speaking of Philadelphia, there's two good Philadelphia references.
Oh man,
look at me, the British guy.
Hey, shout out, go Birds.
The British guy that knows two, probably the most popular Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good for you, man. Good for you, man. I'm proud of you.
It's my best. I've never been. I still want to go to the US. It's super high on my. Where would you? Okay, so I've literally never been. Well, I've flown over it because I went skiing in Canada once.
Mm-hmm.
So that is as close as I've been. What would be, if I could go to 3 places, what would you recommend?
New York City, number 1. I love New York City. My family's from there. It's just awesome. I love the hustle and bustle in Times Square, and there's so much activity, so much to do. Texas. I love Texas. Great music scene. Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, etc. Awesome music scene and good Southern hospitality. I guess depending on some things. And then California. You got to go to California. You got to go to the West Coast and soak up those the beautiful weather and the art and the culture and I don't know. It's just, for lack of a better term, it's very liberal, but that can be really interesting and a lot of cool stuff to do and to see. That's a tough question though. There's a lot of cool places. It depends on what you're looking for. I guess if you're looking for like beautiful hikes and stuff, I would go to like Colorado or something. But yeah, New York. Let's say LA. Let's get specific. Say LA, and then somewhere in Texas.
I had someone ask me a question not so long ago, which was, you can go anywhere in the world whenever you like. Like you've got unlimited sort of trips and no responsibilities, but you can only ever go to cities or rural, like natural areas. And what would you pick?
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know what I'd pick, because I love like the natural world being around me. Like that's why my desk right here, it's nighttime here, but I'm right by my window, so I've got all the, all the sunlight and the trees and everything.
So you'd be missing out on beauty and nature and.
Yeah, you just be in a city. I mean, there's some nature in cities. There's not.
Sure, but
really.
There are plenty of people that prefer to go out into the woods or into the country and far away from all that noise, and that's totally valid too.
Are you a city goer or a
I think
country?
I'm like a suburbs guy. I like having the option to drive 10, 15 minutes to the city and be there and soak it up, but I don't want to be stuck there. I don't want to be living in an apartment in that loud, busy noise. I want to be able to scoot away. I like having the option to also go and go off somewhere in nature and have a peaceful hike, and not just be pigeonholed into the city. I definitely think I would go crazy if I lived out in the middle of nowhere, like farmlands or whatever. So I need that social interaction and that action. But I think being stuck there kind of freaks me out.
Yeah, my parents are based in the Cotswolds, which is about the most British sounding.
That's very British sounding.
Well, I did call it the Cotswolds.
The Cotswolds.
That's pretty good.
No, don't gas me up. It's
they like there's not even a road like name in the address, because the whole town is just like the road. That's it. There's like 150 people there.
Wow.
It's really nice, but it's like you can't, if you don't have a car, unless you want to hike everywhere. If you want to go to the nearest pub, British pub, that's about 45-minute walk, and then near a shop.
Wow.
You're camping. Like
that's the thing, man. Like there's a lot to love about a small town, but also I think you miss out on things if you don't venture beyond it. Being stuck in a small town your whole life, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much more out there to at least try and see if you like it. And if you have tried it and you don't, and you prefer just being in a tight-knit, out-of-the-way community, that's perfectly okay, but I think people should at least give it a shot. And not everyone has the means to travel. I know that more than most people. I never got to travel until I got these music opportunities in bands. But yeah, venturing beyond home base is important.
For anyone in the UK, home base is a really boring DIY store. So
oh shit.
So probably should venture beyond that.
Shout out to home base.
You can said that in the least British way possible as well.
Shout out to home base. There we go.
I had a very so do you see yourself retiring like quiet, quite
No,
country
again,
sound?
I would want to live in the suburbs where it's like quiet-ish, but 10 minutes away from the action. That's where I'd want to be always. I don't see myself ever being like, all right, I'm going off to Nowhereville to to hunt and fish for my food. No, I like being close to society. Not that close. Okay, I'm an introvert. Don't get me wrong, but I like being close enough.
Come to Birmingham. Oh, you've been in Birmingham, UK. You don't need to be that close. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard Birmingham, Alabama also doesn't have a great reputation.
No, I think many places in Alabama don't have the greatest reputation for various reasons. That wasn't on my list, if you remember. I didn't put Alabama there. No disrespect to Alabama.
No, you just did.
I mean, cut that. No, just kidding. But it's not where I wouldn't say it's where all the action is.
Well, if you come to Birmingham, I've just said that you have come to Birmingham, UK. What was your? Do you remember much of what's your sort of impression?
I remember the inside of the venue and the toilet. I unfortunately didn't get to experience or soak up too much when I'm there. I'm focused on playing the show, and then we got to skedaddle. So that's the downfall of traveling, but touring is that it's not you don't get to do a lot of tourist things usually.
Yeah, well, I guess unless you're on a day off, it's you're driving or you're flying.
Oh man, and I never have enough days off. Let me tell you, bro. This next tour that Monuments is doing, 40 shows, maybe like 5 days off in the entire run. There's like 11 in a row on this one. So it's just going to be a blur. I'm not going to be able to think about much else, but trying to keep my voice in good shape and doing a good job. So,
do you ever, like, as the tour goes on, because you obviously you get in the moment when you're performing live and that, and do you have those sort of weird like experiences where you suddenly step out of that bubble and you're like, oh, I'm on stage, and there's, especially a few shows in, I can imagine once you're really like well oiled and it's all working okay, assuming everything's working fine. Do you have those moments where you just step out of your like zone and you're like, oh, I'm up? Yeah, you sort of step out of the flow state.
Sure,
and just
yeah.
like,
And you know what? I think that happens more at the beginning because I'm like rusty. I'm not in the routine yet. I'm not in the zone yet. So I am way more hyper aware. I'm on stage. I'm performing like, whoa. And then after like a week of tour, you start to go into this mode where I'm not saying it's autopilot, but you just zone in on it and you don't scrutinize as much or think about it. So I get those vibes at the beginning, but then when I get into the groove, I'm just kind of doing it, and it feels more second nature.
yeah. What's it? I found myself like, because we did one tour, but like we played kind of mainly just like shows here and there and stuff, and every now and again I just sort of, my brain would just like remind me I'm just in a room playing my guitar on a stage with people in front, becoming not like hyper aware.
And you're like, holy crap, yeah, what am I doing up here? Holy shit. I get that. I get that during like the bigger ones, or like most recently the festivals that I've played, where we're in front of bigger crowds than we have any business being in front of, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on in my life? So yeah, I felt that before.
Are you good at kind of appreciating the moments, or do you sometimes, or do you find that sometimes
I try as hard as I can to appreciate the moments. I really need to like journal or something, because the problem is that when you're going to a different city and playing a new show every night, it's impossible for your brain to hold on to these moments. There are always going to be things that you'll remember forever, but I hate how I think back on tours, even ones that I'm like on, and I think back to the beginning of the tour, I'm like, I don't even remember that show. And I want to so much. I want to like soak it in and appreciate it and take a mental snapshot, but your brain like can't keep up with how fast you're moving.
I suppose that's kind of the lesson, though, isn't it? It's like, don't reminisce, just enjoy the fact that you're there. Like
yeah.
What's it kind of trying to obviously keeping what's the word, like involved with, obviously you've got kind of projects, and I'm assuming like have done over the years, kind of worldwide. Like, what's it like trying to manage all that stuff and actually like stay connected? So a band like Monuments, where is everyone in the UK?
Yeah. All those guys.
Yeah, and
well, actually, yeah. Well, let's just say yeah for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. So because obviously there's the practical side of just like sending files and all that shit and Zoom calls and whatever. But how do you sort of stay connected with them, like on a personal level?
Well, it takes effort for sure, because we're in different time zones, and we schedule, like, when we're active and working on stuff, we try to schedule 2 meetings a month on Discord where we all video chat for like half an hour to an hour. Because you won't naturally stay connected. You really got to, like, schedule them. Okay, meet on this day at this time. Get into a routine of doing that. And then it's all right. We're keeping up with what we do in our day-to-days and our duties. But, yeah, I think that if we didn't plan those meetings out, it would be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's I kind of, it's funny because like I'd love to have like a podcast studio kind of thing going on here. But
yeah.
I think realistically as well with the way with like touring, you know, I'd be waiting like however long for, and the way British cities are, there's always like one missing from a tour. There's always I think actually there's always that come to X place. It's like, you know, it's the classic one.
God, I know.
With kind of all that, you know, keeping connected and stuff, I feel like it's such a weird. I'm interested to think how like those relationships, like band relationships, might change because maybe you're not in a room. Even if, you know, I know we had Zoom calls with my old band. Yeah, we lived pretty close together, but we'd still be on Zoom calls and stuff quite often. And I wonder how that will change band politics, if it will.
Yeah, I think you develop and grow differently when you're close together in real life doing a tour. You get a lot of each other, almost too much of each other. And then when the tour's over, you get some breathing room and you have that dose of interaction a couple times a week. And that seems to work for us. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think every dynamic is different in every band. So there's not one all-encompassing vibe when it comes to how you socialize with your bandmates and how the band politics may or may not change depending on your proximity. It's a very much living, breathing thing with a lot of variables.
Do you think you need to be, because there's that classic like, you know, treat a band like a business. Do you feel like there needs to be that level of friendship, or do you think you can kind of, and do you think it feasibly, like sustainably, you can, assuming you're all good, like, I don't want to say business partners, but you know what I mean? Like,
it's not fun if you're not friends. I'll tell you that. Like, you won't be fully enjoying what you're doing if you're not getting along with your bandmates. If you're just like, yeah, we're just business partners and we don't really like each other, that's not worth it. It's really not. Because it's more than just a job. Like, you're living with these people for 2 months at a time, and just being business partners with your roommates, essentially, it's not good. It's not good vibes. It's like cold, and I've been there before. So it is important that you care about each other and that you're friends, because otherwise you're gonna stop having fun, and you're just gonna feel like you're going through the motions, and you're gonna feel alone. I think that's the brutal thing, is that if you're not friends with your bandmates, you'll feel like you're by yourself.
How do you kind of, in those moments, not just when maybe you feel by yourself, but when when music's not going the way you want it to, and we talked about that being like tied to you in that way, particularly maybe as you were saying about being introverted and it being your way of getting yourself out there. How do you kind of dig yourself out of the ruts when they come along?
Oh man, I don't even know. I do it, but I don't know how. Because I get those ruts. I get depression episodes where I just feel useless for a week. I think I go through stages of grief in that sense, where I'm feeling sorry for myself, and then I'm angry about it, and then I'm like trying to bargain about it in my head or whatever. Eventually, I'm able to dig deep and remember why I do it in the first place. And being able to put all the bullshit that I'm caught up in aside and be like, well, why did I start doing this in the first place? Because I love to be creative and to make music. All right, well, let's just keep fucking doing that then, and stop worrying so much about all this other stuff. And that allows me to keep going. And then I think we feel a lot better once we've accomplished something. So I get into this cycle where, like, oh, I haven't done anything in a while, I'm useless, I'm crap, and like I can't, and that makes me not want to do anything. But eventually that spark comes back. You're able to get some work done. It rejuvenates you, and it restores faith in yourself. And then that's how I do it, I guess. I'm just spitballing because I struggle with this shit all the time. Best believe.
Yeah, I think an analogy that I always find like useful is with all the students I teach with guitar. I always say, like, because they get hung up on, especially when it comes to like playing stuff fast, they get hung up on like not being able to play something, or even just not being able to play something. Like they can hit the notes, but it kind of just sounds a bit flimsy or a bit like there's something missing, and they can play it at like 85-90% speed, like kind of blundering through it. That's maybe a bit of an insult, but you know what I mean? Like it doesn't quite sound like 90%, but clean 90%. It's like I know what they're playing and I can hear all the notes and everything, but it's maybe not like the authentic kind of thing that they're trying to get. And I always say, just like, well, how fast can you play it perfectly? And then it turns out to be like 40% of the speed. So I'm like, okay, your goal is to get to 45% now, because if you actually set an achievable goal, you'll get back up to 90 in no time, because you'll be motivated by that 5% you keep getting, and then you'll be at 90%.
Like that's really smart. Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that a lot, and also that I think that allows you to be a little more patient with yourself. That's another important factor here is to forgive yourself and not beat yourself up too much, and then you can be more realistic. Okay, it's all right that I can only do this perfectly at 45% speed, because once you've accepted your limitations, you can start working on them and pushing past them, versus being like trying really hard to play it at 100 when you know you're not there yet and be like, fuck, I fucking suck. Like, it's better to be like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's really address where I am and where I want to be, and just being patient with yourself.
So I guess like a good kind of a good thing to wrap up with, speaking of goals and stuff, is like, what's the long term? I guess the question is like, what was, because you, like I said, you said you sort of, I know you maybe didn't take YouTube seriously right away, but certainly I know I didn't ask you specifically when you started music, but like, what was the goal when you started, and what is like, the dream, if you like, and what is that now?
Tough question. I mean, the goal when I started was to just be understood, to be seen, because I felt like I wasn't. And then it became like, I want to be a rock star. But now my goal is to live comfortably and support myself, and do it by, with music and performing, and just not scrounging to pay the bills, and but doing what I love. I don't need to be fucking Axl Rose or like a giant rock star, but I would love for the bills to be paid and more, doing what I love and still being able to perform and keeping my voice. I just want to live comfortably and be with the people I love, and make art that satisfies me, and also hopefully reaches others in a positive way, like we were talking about.
It's funny you say that, because like I was talking with some friends only yesterday. I went to school with them, and we went to like quite a prestigious school, and they're doing really well with their like respective careers, I mean, well, in the traditional sense of success, and one of them actually said to me, like, what's my, not like what's the end, it basically asked me the question I just asked you, thinking about it, and I think I said like a kind of similar thing. I think I said like basically to make a career out of being creative with music, for me. And then I don't think there was much beyond that. Like, don't get me wrong, there are always the big dreams, and I haven't stopped aiming for them any less. But like, I think the weight that they have, maybe, I'd love to headline Download Festival. Like, that's not gonna ever stop being like a dream.
Of course, but you can still have you can have your giant dreams, and then you can have the ones that's like, what will it take for me to be happy? And that's different from being all the way up here. You don't need. That would be like absolutely incredible, but you got to think about, what do I actually need to feel fulfilled and happy?
And would that be absolutely incredible if the rest of your life's really shitty? Like, it would. It'd be even more incredible probably, but then you'd just crash again, and it wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the top of the mountain is not. It's not a place you live. It's a place that you touch. So you can't.
That's
you
a good
can't
quote.
Hang your entire life on reaching that, because then it's like, now what?
I really like that.
Thanks. I can't remember. I definitely didn't make that up. I heard that somewhere. Don't ask me where, but I can't take credit for it.
Heard it hiking.
It's good, right?
Yeah, no, it is really good. Yeah, the amount of good quotes I hear, and I wish I had like a quote box in my head. But you always sound a bit too like, if you quote them a bit too directly, you sound a bit too like, oh, listen to me, I'm all Gandalf and that.
Smoking my cigar.
Yeah. So no, wicked, man. So basically, I've really enjoyed chatting, and I could chat for ages, but
me too, man. I've really enjoyed your questions, dude. You're awesome to talk to. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And look at this new camera and everything, amazing.
Woo, baby.
So I need a question for the next guest to start the conversation, who is actually tomorrow. Okay. But I mean, it won't be out tomorrow, but because that'll be pretty quick turnover on yours. But and then also an artist you think deserves some love. So
is your guest a vocalist, or is it just
it's like a music person, or just someone in the music world?
All right. I'll say. I guess I'll give this question. If you weren't pursuing music, what would be the next best thing? What would you be going for? If not music, where would you direct your efforts and find your passion in?
Nice. That's a good question. I often think about that as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm still not sure what my answer would be, but and then you said shout out an artist that I think deserves more attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on the last Monuments tour, we brought out this solo artist named Essinger, and he does kind of like synthwave, rock, metal influence all in one music, like very electronic, but also guitar and vocal driven. Really cool stuff. I wouldn't have known how much I had liked it unless, without going out on tour and witnessing it for myself. But this kid is fucking awesome. Definitely check out Essinger. Super creative and deserves more attention.
Wicked. And if you got anything you want to plug, so to finish up?
Yeah, I guess my newish project, Dearest, is releasing an EP on November 8th. That'll be tomorrow, so I guess it's already out. So go check it out. It's cool. It's got Anoop Sastry and Lucas Gayeter, who used to be in Intervals, and came together to make something sick. Dearest.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it's a birthday.
Birthday release. That's
Did
right.
you plan that?
No. It was just the date that Lucas came up with, and I was like, hey, that's my birthday. And they're like, all right, sick. And you know what, man? This project has been like 4 or 5 years in the making and was kind of just stuck in mixing hell for a long time. So I'm really glad that it's finally coming out. And on my birthday, I couldn't ask for more. That's great.
That's awesome. I need to Anoop someone I want to bug about the podcast.
Oh, yeah, dude. He would be great to chat with.
Yeah,
you should definitely reach out to him.
I shall do. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome, dude. Thank you. This has been great, and it's a pleasure being on your podcast, man. Turn that shit down.